Welcome, League Loungers, and sit back and relax, enjoy. This will be the first official Instagram video that we're going to do, and I'll also put this as a podcast format as well. And to start us off, and probably this will be a weekly thing, I'm hoping to do more podcasts, but to start off with, I just thought it's really hard to kind of get content growing, and obviously I'm trying my best on my page, but I thought I want to utilize the podcast format, and I think the best way to do that is to ask you guys what you want to hear. So I just want to basically, I put a thing up on my Insta story asking what you guys want me to talk about, any questions, bold takes, all sorts. So we've got heaps of responses. We might only do a few of them today. I'll see how far we get into, because I know I always plan to do all of them, but then I go on a bit of a ramble. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I want to get kind of a name or a tag going for this, the followers' thoughts and opinions, something a bit more catchy than that. So if you got any ideas, please let me know. So we'll start off, and shout out to everyone that has, sent one in. I really appreciate it, and love all you guys that have followed me so far. Really appreciate the support. This one comes from Ned Kanowski. He said, athletes from another sport that would go all right in the NRL. Now, there's obvious ones where you talk about like rugby players that can switch over. I think of the All Blacks like Ardie Savea, Beauden Barrett, all sorts, Damian McKenzie. But I would love to see, my favourite athletes are basketball athletes, as you can see here. So athletes from the NBA. Now, you can argue, can they transfer this, skills? Obviously, you're shooting the basketball, you're not kicking the league ball. But I think, a lot of them, if you give them time, they'd be able to do so. Obviously, LeBron sticks out. He's talked about if he went to NFL, he could be the best quarterback, the best running back. So he'd be one. Russell Westbrook, an open space. Please, who's stopping him? So there's many great athletes in there. So there'd probably be two that stick out for me. I'm trying to think who else. No one else at the top of my brain. Obviously, you got NFL athletes. NFL athletes interest me because of the fact that, and it's just, it's the American sports in general, and most notably NFL, how I wonder how they'd go at rugby or league, because they're so used to just doing one thing in particular. We can't pick apart, for example, DeAndre Hopkins' passing game, because guess what? He doesn't need to do that. We're NRL players and NBA players, we're picking apart their games, but at the end of the day, they've got so many other skills they have to learn and develop. With NFLs, I know there's a lot of complex learning the right routes, positioning, athleticism, all sorts, speed. But at the end of the day, they only have to focus on kind of one job and one job only, where, like a talk league rugby, you're playing both sides of the ball. Even though a prop, yes, he's not going to be kicking field goals. Well, you might see that, but still, the games, you keep developing, you come in a guy that's just going to run into the opposing, forward packs, and now you've got to be able to ball play, you've got to be able to have a bit of footwork, you've got to be able to crank out, Payne Haas minutes, 80, 60 minutes. So it's ever changing, So, yeah, for me, I think, even though it sounds crazy, I think the basketball athletes would actually transition, funny enough, better to NFL athletes, especially when you think basketball, just like us when we're growing up, and, I'm speaking from a New Zealander, and, probably people watching this will be Aussies as well. You play a lot of different sports, and you hear stories of, basketball players being, potential NFL players as well. So that even though they have those basic skills started, plus they're used to passing, they're used to a lot of other stuff that you wouldn't think it's transferable skills, but at the end of the day, athletes are athletes. So next question, sorry guys. So overall LeBron would be my number one pick for that. And while I'm talking, UFC athletes would be interesting. I just love, they're just so explosive, and again, you got to learn how to learn the skills. But in terms of body type, man, there'd be some scary guys. Raul Romero, Paulo Costa, man, I wouldn't want them running into me. So we are just having a look here, guys. All right. Shout out to my podcast mate. Hopefully get some podcasts going with him throughout the season. The guy that really helped me kind of upstart this page and gave me some good advice, and had a giveaway going for me, to get some followers. So shout out to him. It's Oliver from Rugby League, in my opinion, and his must be a take. Dragons to just make the 8. I remember him saying this on the podcast, and I thought, you bugger, because I was thinking the same thing. No one was talking about the Dragons as a top 8 team. We're quite enticed by those teams that made big signings. But for me, the Dragons, even though Anthony Griffin's had an interesting coaching career, he's had success where he's gone. Not long-term success, but he's been into clubs and he's been able to win straight away. So that's key. For me, though, I'm holding back because it looks like he is going to be stubborn and not play Ben Hunt at hooker. Now, if Ben Hunt goes to hooker, which might become more likely now if we've seen McInnes is potentially going to the Tigers or shipped elsewhere, I really see them taking a leap. Because we're just seeing the game speed up so much with the 6 again rule, and Ben Hunt can take full advantage of this. I thought he did brilliant when he came on for Queensland in game 1. He was brilliant last year. He was the best player. I think he was given the Queensland Player of the Series in 2019. So he's a better hooker than he is a halfback now. In terms, probably more with depending who he's got next to him. So, yeah, and I think Clune's an underrated half as well. I think, yes, it was his rookie season. I think his work went a little bit undervalued, to be fair. They used Tyson Frizzell, big loss, but I think they can recover from that. They've got players that are just going to get better. Lomax is going to improve. They've got the likes of Jacob Host, who you might not know his name. It's not one of those names that's always on the tip of your tongue. But guys that are young, developing, they're going to get more opportunities. Paul Vaughan, he's still a quality prop. Put him back in the Origin arena and he's still going to prove it. So I could see that too. I'm just a little bit hesitant to do so because I'm not too sure about the situation with Ben Hunt, but I really do rate that boldness. Bryce Morrow, cheers mate, you sent in quite a few. Craig Bellamy is overrated, so is Kalen Ponga. Now, it depends, overrated. Obviously, I love talking about underrated. Overrated is obviously the alternative of that. I don't like using that because it's just discrediting in a way, but I understand it's good for a topic. It just depends how I don't want people to say, overrated, that means I believe he's shit. That's not what I mean at all. And it depends what you're comparing it to. So Craig Bellamy is overrated. For me, he's the best coach in NRL, personally. But is he overrated in terms of should we be putting in the GOAT conversation? I believe we should, but I think if I'm just reading into Bryce's thought here, he probably thinks he's overrated in the sense that he's always had this system he's been in. If he wants to prove he's the greatest, he needs to go somewhere else and lead a team. Because you could argue it's not Craig Bellamy, it's a system. Well, to be fair, he probably he is the system. So it's one of those things, double-edged sword, is he getting too much credit, or is he the one that basically built it? You've seen Slater leave, you've seen Cronk leave. Guess what? They won the premiership, and then when Cronk left the first year, made the grand final. Slater left, they won the premiership. This year, they finally went and done it and won it. And remember after salary cap, what did they do? Won a premiership straight away, and then year after 2012. So he's always been able to defy the odds. And yes, he's had great players come in, but man, he has turned some guys that haven't had careers at all. They've been dropped out for a reason, and he's picked them up and he's got them to fulfill their potential. He's proven it time in, time out. So yeah, I don't really agree. It just depends. If you're saying if people were saying he's clearly the best coach of all time, and you're saying that's overrated, yep, fair. Kalen Ponga, look, I think he was in the tier just below Sheck, Tedesco, Turbo. He was more knocking on that door than, taking back seat. Now, I believe I'd rather have Pepe. I'd rather have Gafferson right now. Here's an interesting one. I actually really like what Ponga did this year too. I think it's more about what Pepe and Gafferson were able to do. He kind of took a back seat at the end of the year. He kind of dropped off again, but not to the same degree as he did last year. I was disappointed with his effort at the end of 2019. It just depends. I think I like him roaming around a bit. He can sometimes get too comfortable just going to edge. I don't believe once again, Bryce, I don't know what you're comparing him to, but it's an interesting take. I understand where you're coming from. I think there are better fullbacks than him out there. I think he's dropped out of the top 5 if I'm just listed off the 3 I thought were ahead of him, and then I'd probably have Guffo and Pepe, especially when you think Guffo is just effort, more versatile too. Pepe's just gone to another level this year. So, yeah. All right, and another question, Adam Reynolds is going to benefit with the new rules, and I'm guessing just because of the 2-point field goal. Yeah, I agree. I think the Rabbitohs in general are, because I think I actually think the fullbacks, I put a post up earlier when this first got announced, that the fullbacks are going to benefit the most, because you're going to easily be able to mark halves. You're always going to be back in your mind, you're going to be thinking maybe early they catch a few teams off, but you're always going to see the halves and think there's always potential here. We're going to put extra pressure on them. But I think the fullbacks, the Holmeses, the Mitchells, and there was someone else I focused on in particular. Who did I say? I said Holmes, Mitchell, and Asako. If Asako is fullback, it looks likely Milford might be fullback, and we might talk about that later. But he's also another guy that could kick a field goal as well. So yeah, I think those teams are going to benefit because they can just lie in the pocket, bang, there you go. So it's going to be interesting, that rule. I just hope it doesn't change the game, like in the sense that it changes what the game looks like. It's just now we see teams just get really, just focus on buying these guys with amazing boots, and we see teams, play the style of footy that's not why we fell in love with the game. But hey, I could see the benefit. I could see it backfiring too. So it's going to be very interesting. And this year's a bad year for Cameron Smith to retire. I don't get this one at all. This is the perfect time for Cameron Smith to retire. You got Harry Grant coming in, you got Brandon Smith there as well. And I think they've still got a team, and we'll get to this later too, so I won't touch them too much, to still contend. They're not going to do it the same way. Yes, they are going to miss Cameron Smith hugely. It's not going to be a perfect solution, even though Harry Grant's proven to be a top 5 hooker in this game already, especially already proven it in the Origin Arena. They're going to be, it's like, was the Rugby League guru. He made a great point. They're the same, but they're going to be different, but they're still going to be successful. They're going to have to play a different style. They're going to miss a lot of what can bring, but Harry Grant brings a lot to this footy team, and really, really is going to benefit. He benefits from the way the game's played now, fast and furious, and so does the rest of the Storm team. So, yeah, I think it's a great time for him to retire. I think but I'm not too sure. He could still, I would like him to go to another club though. In that sense, yes, I think it's a good time for him to leave the Storm. I'd like to see him in another club. He could really benefit another club. Tom Burgess is better than George Burgess right now, yes. Tom Burgess was actually the most consistent South Sydney Rabbitoh last year. There was always I had question marks about South Sydney. I think a lot of people did, but he always turned up. He always got them go forward going, and yeah, I think he really established himself. Now, in their peak, George Burgess, there was just a little bit more X factor to George Burgess in the sense that it was more likely to break a tackle and you're more scared of him. Now, Tom Burgess might have been more reliable at his peak, and Tom's good for a good era too. But yeah, right now, Tom Burgess is the better player. Thank you for that, mate. And Rugby League review with the next one. Shout out to him. He's producing some awesome content out there. I don't want to give too much away. I'll actually start with saying I'm not doing any big predictions because it's still a little bit time away. I'll be dropping little hints and maybe overall thoughts, but he's asked me who wins the Premiership in 2021, and right now, and you guys know I'm a bit of a Melbourne Storm fan, bit of a Melbourne Storm fan, big time Melbourne Storm fan. See, I've got a mug there to prove it. And I would give you a bit of a tour, but it'll be a bit awkward holding my own laptop. I do think they're going to... I'd pick them right now. It's actually probably a bit more to do with the other teams around them as well. The other teams aren't really grabbing me. I think the top 3 contenders outside the Storm are the Rabbits, and there's something holding me back from the Rabbits. The forward depth is obviously improved with Arrow, and the guys have stepped up, but there's still something there. Maybe a little bit of polish, maybe a bit of inconsistency from their key players at times with Cody Walker, and also the health of Adam Reynolds. It's the healthiest Adam Reynolds has been in a while. Latrell's great. I think he's done wonders, and he had a really great season. And Corey Allen can slot back there if anything happens to Latrell. If it doesn't work out, Latrell goes to centre, all that. They got great depth. I don't know what it is. When you just get a feeling there's something holding you back. But at the moment, I still believe they'll be up there. The Roosters are very interesting. They got halfback void to still deal with. I could see them right now. If I had to pick the grand final, and I picked this last year, it was Storm versus Roosters, I'd do the same. They were looking red hot. And what happened? Victor Radley got injured. And he wasn't necessarily halfback, obviously, but their attack went through him. He took a lot of pressure off Flanagan. And if they can find the half to kind of, suit the style they play and work with Victor Radley. Victor Radley takes a lot of responsibility. You don't need a game manager in the half. Sam Walker can come in and he can play his style straight away. He could kind of be similar to what George Williams was able to do at the Raiders, come in and play a running half role, because that was a big question mark. How are Jack Wyden and George Williams going to fit? And it worked fine, especially how the game's slightly changed with the speed, And when you got a guy in Radley that's able to take the pressure off your young half, it's going to help, They didn't, that's, for me, that's the biggest what if of 2020, the Victor Radley injury. He was huge, and obviously in defence he brings a lot too. So right now, that would be my next team. I've mentioned the Raiders. I think they are going to be awesome again. The big couple question marks, I think, when it comes to final footy, they are going to miss John Bateman and Nick Kotrick when it comes to just that bit of X factor. They've lost him and haven't really gained anything back. Tapine, I believe, will have a breakthrough year, but will he be that X factor? We'll wait and see. And also, Josh Hodgson, who I believe, before last season was a top 5 player in the game. I really thought he was one of the most valuable players in the game. I was kind of proven wrong because they weren't doing flash hot with him. I don't know if he really suited this rule change as such. And he gets injured. I thought, well, they might even drop out the 8. They got better. So even though, yes, he comes in, you think, man, they almost made the grand final without him. You've got to remember, they weren't flash hot with him. And that's me, from a huge Josh Hodgson fan, He's one of my favourite players that's not in the Storm. Yeah, off the top of my head. Yeah, probably would be. I've always been a fan of him. He's so crafty. But, hey, we'll see. And, Tom Starling, maybe they use Tom Starling, I know they used him a lot when Hodgson was out, but they rotate them more. They find different ways of utilising both at the same time, where Tom Starling goes into hooker and Josh Hodgson plays kind of a roaming 13, playmaking 13 role. That could be very interesting. So, yeah. And then, obviously, the other two teams, Penrith and Power, I just see Penrith dropping off, and experience there. No Tedvano, no time out. They're going to miss the strength and the go forward coming off the back fence with Josh Mansour. And I think teams are going to figure them out a bit easier, get the clear, put pressure on. The Eels are an interesting one. I think people have fallen off the Eels. It's the same old Eels. They just don't have that guy to get them over the hump. When it gets to finals footy, they just, they've bowed out in straight sets every time. I think the key for them is, now, Andrew Johns was obviously being kind of a mentor for Mitchell Moses, and we saw his impact was quite evident. And, You know, he probably wasn't able to spend much time with him over the COVID period once all this restrictions kind of tightened. And I reckon that's huge. You've got to look into things like that. And also going back to Cleary, he's going to miss Trent Barrett. So, yeah, that's another reason to kind of think, you know, what are the Panthers going to be? Panthers going to be able to deliver. But, yeah, I think if he can continue to make steps in game managing, and it's also going to help Dylan Brown just play what he sees. I talked about it in my top 5 breakout stars for 2021. I think the better Moses gets at just being making those winning plays, game managing plays, it's just going to help. It's going to help Dylan Brown mostly and the rest of the team. Michael Jennings is a loss too. I'm not too sure what his situation, how that's being dealt with at the moment. You know, another experience there. And there's a Blake Ferguson. His situation's not steady either. Honestly, it could be a team that, honestly, everyone kind of thinks, you know, we're going to drop off, but then they turn around and have a great year, or it's actually a year we see, you know, a year where ultimately Brad Arthur gets fired because just year after, keeps trying, same result, same thing happens. A bit like how Maz Maguire worked out at the Rabbitohs. So it's just like, yeah, you've done a great job, but it's kind of just, you know, it's just the same thing, different day. You know, same with, oh, sorry, I've had a brain fart. Paul Green at the Cowboys as well. Yeah, so it could just be, you know, time for new blood in there. So I went into a bit of detail with that one, but I just wanted to give my overall thoughts, and it could change, like I said. So now I've got Matthew, who's got a few questions here. What's wrong with the Broncos, and are they a top 6 lineup? No, not a top 6 lineup. Just leave it at that. And what's wrong with them? Culture, decisions made at the top, and hopefully Kevy, you know, it's going to be an interesting signing. Would it have been the coaching signing I would have done? It's interesting because I don't think he's the best X's and O's coach, and he hasn't proven it at the NRL that he can coach, but he's passionate. We've seen that with Queensland, even though I was always sceptical of him as a Queensland fan. I loved a lot of what he's done, and there's been some good signs early. He's made some big calls early, potentially putting Milford as captain, kind of being up front with some players in their role, and just bringing in players that you're going to give them a chance. So, and he's going to be the one, if their culture's screwed at the moment, you've got to get a Broncos guy and a former legend in to kind of maybe, you know, right some wrongs with some former legends. And ultimately, I think they should worry about that more than what they get out of their production this year. Yeah, and, you know, we talk about their spine. There's some great talent. We know how good Milford can be. We know roller coaster ride that Brodie Croft is as well. So I'd just like to see them maybe have a bit more of an indication who they're going to have as their spine. You can see is Dearden the man, is Croft the man. I'd love to see them bring in an experienced guy next to them. The young fullbacks, you know, it's the best young fullback in the comp, and really can. I thought at the start of last year you should more be talking about it being in contention as one of the best fullbacks in the comp. Just making sure these guys are getting the right treatment, getting developed right, you know, in a good culture. That's the main thing. Don't worry about results this year. Don't worry about results. You know, worry about developing your talent and making sure. And yeah, my biggest concern is just the decisions up top. You bring in Seabold, who, yes, had a great year with the Rabbitohs, but you drop arguably the greatest coach of all time. Yeah, just stuff like that. And a lot of it's out of the personnel's, you know, hands. So, no, not a top 6 lineup, Matthew. Who shouldn't the Bulldogs got rid of? Just trying to think who they got rid of. I hate this when you just, hit it blank. Corey Haruanara, now that situation's interesting, so I understand that one, but he was one of the best. I thought he was the best player for good spurts. So who shouldn't have they got rid of? At this stage, honestly, I've had a blank. And Tolman was a great veteran, one of the more consistent props we've seen in the in the last decade. But Luke Thompson's going to be a man to watch out for, and they got Dylan Nupper coming through too. Obviously, still there, I should say, and Jack Hetherington too. That was more what I meant. He's coming through, and he could be a Nupper 2.0. He could, yeah, he's got a bit of aggressor in him. You know, he got under the skin of Jared Hargrave. So, yeah, but as an answer to the question, who shouldn't they lost? Foreign, Yeah, it's an interesting one. I thought form was awesome in stages last year. The injuries, and I think, if he gets healthy, he could be right into the Kiwis next year too. I hope, or this year, I should say. So yeah, Fawn's a loss, especially when you think you got Flanagan there. Maybe you want some experience next to him. This is going to be, pretty inexperienced team. Obviously, you got Wuhapawada, you got a few there, but would be probably best to have Fawn next to Flanagan, especially after the year Flanagan had last year, the scapegoat. Honestly, I hate using that word, but if anyone was, he was, and he was unfairly so. So Fawn would be that one for me, mate. Bulldogs are the best. Bold Take Raiders and Rabbitohs will do better than the Roosters and Storm. Yeah, fair enough. I basically set for my thoughts on them. So obviously we get closer to the season, we can discuss more about that. So we won't talk about that. Another bold take. And this is the second last question, but last question from Matthew. Blues would have won if we carried it back on the bench instead of Isaiah Yeo. So I was thinking about this. I saw this question and it did stick out to me because I remember, even though I'm a Queensland fan, I always try to get into who they should have taken, who shouldn't have they picked, and seeing that bench for New South Wales, they picked Brown, Finucane, Yao, and Junior Paulo. So 3 of those 4 players are essentially locks, and I don't hate that because they're versatility. They're versatile, I should say. They've got power. They've got a bit of speed, footwork. It's how the game's played. Mobile forward packs are going to win your game, especially when you come in Origin. The game has sped up, like we're going to say time and time again. Those are the forwards that can take more advantage rather than the big boppers. You still got to carry them. Like Junior Paulo off the bench was sensational, and I consider having the likes of Clem. I thought he was one that should have been in there. But I did think they missed even. You don't have to worry about size too much. I think, they did miss a back there, and I think my bench was very similar to what they had, but I don't think I had Yeo, or I don't know why you picked on Yeo specifically. I don't know if Yeo would be my guy out. Yes, Brown's made for Origin, I believe, like he just fits that mould, and Dale Finucane he proved he's, and I love Dale Finucane, one of the more underrated rep players in the game. So Yeo, he probably would be the old man out. You probably are on the money there. I would have brought in a Pappy, to see how it would have gone. Especially, and it's tough because it worked in Origin 2, but even after Origin 2, I was like, but it's not going to always go like that. It's not always going to go to plan. You got to remember Munster was injured. And just you had, just everything, stuff went your way. You had a good game, but when you're not, maybe you're like 5% off, 10% off. So don't always think, it worked game 2. Let's do the exact same thing. Because I was saying that about Queensland, I was like, even though it worked game 1, I could see how we could have improved. I could see let's bring in Harry Grant now. Let's bring Harry Grant off the bench with Hunt, I was thinking, because I thought they could still be provide value. You could use Hunt could come on as 13, or Grant could come on as 13, or they could come on a 9. So they could both play at the same time, and then Friend would come off, or find a funny lineup with all 3 of them on. I thought still, even though you're winning, you got to still think, how can I improve? And I thought New South Wales should have been thinking that as well with Pappy. So I don't know if Pappy would have been your man chosen. It would have been interesting too if maybe you think Cody Walker and put Luke Keary back to 6. That's another option as well. And the last one, why are Cowboys so bad? Cheers, Jacob Walton. Why are they so bad? Yeah, good question. Now, I shouldn't have said that. Because their roster, I picked them to be top 4 last year. Obviously you got the best forward in the game, Tamalala. You got Michael Morgan, who's proven he could, not carry his team to a grand final, but basically be that main piece to get that. It was an unbelievable run. That's actually understanding it too much. Michael Morgan was sensational, and I think a lot of it does have to do with the health of Michael Morgan. It has how it has to do with Tamalolo taking too much responsibility and maybe not adapting to the way the game is played now. Like, you know, they need probably a bit more unpredictability in their forward pack. They just run it hard, run it straight and hard, and yeah, I think they need to be able to have players in there that can mix it up with a bit of ball playing. Their defense is just not well, but Todd Payton, I think he's going to leave them accountable. He's going to give them a bit more of an identity, I believe. And you got to remember, like, even though, you know, I thought Holmes would transition back nicely at fullback, and people are saying push back to wing. I'd give it another year, or give it the first couple of rounds and see how it's going. I believe he can still be a fullback. People forget, like 2016, 2017, 2018, I think it was, can't remember what year in particular, for the Sharks. You know, people were thinking he was making this run, and everyone was like, Dally M, surely. Like, he was that good. And yes, he is the best wing in the world when he's at wing, but man, he can be impactful as a fullback. Give him time. Give him time. And I thought he didn't do that bad. He had some great moments. I think there was this little errors, like he actually just dropped the ball cold sometimes and defensively made some bad tackles. And yeah, I think he can work on those things with Todd Payton. Todd Payton's going to, you know, make sure he's always delivering, stuff like that. Yeah, and also probably Michael Morgan's health, who the combination of him, Drinkwater or Clifford, how that works as well. So yeah, I think just overall we're gonna see. I'm not too sure where I'm going to rank the Cowboys. I don't want to keep falling into the same trap. I look at their roster too, and I think got to be a top 8 side, but then they don't deliver. Cohen Hess is another one where you think, oh god, he looks more like, you look at him and you think you should be doing much more than you are. So yeah, they're going to win, but I'm more keen. I think I'm going to dive back into the trap. I can just sense it, and I think a lot of it has to do with Todd Payton. Now, I thought that was going to be the last question, but I did realise I got another question, and I'll just look through my messenger to see when I got it. Yeah, like I said, guys, I really appreciate the suggestion. I'll just make sure I've got this right. Yeah, Dark Horse team. That was also from Matthew. Dark Horse team. Well, the Cowboys are a dark horse because you look at the roster and you think they should be there. Another dark horse is the Manly Seagulls, just because injuries. That's the main thing. The health of their players and their depth doesn't help, and also the impact on Kieran Foran too. Whether he's at 6, whether it's 9, that could be very crucial too. I think a lot of people are talking about the Bulldogs, the Titans, the Warriors because they've got signings, and I've got thoughts on them, but I'm gonna talk about them more in depth as we get to the season. I do think they'll all improve. And the Tigers are an interesting one because I think the addition of James Tamou is huge. I really think it is, but is it enough to get them over the top? No, because they lost a bit too, and I'll just look at roster to roster. I'm not too sure if they're there either. That'd be my dark. I'll probably more call this the wildcard teams, and with the Cowboys and Seagulls, and a lot of it does come down to health. If I had to pick just more of a team that I think everyone's a bit low on, it's probably who Oliver said, the Dragons. Yeah, the Dragons for sure. Yeah. So I think that's me, guys. I'm just a bit nervous that I've missed some potential replies. So I think I'm good. Hey, appreciate you guys listening. I actually really enjoyed this. I could keep talking. So we got through all the questions, and I'm very much looking forward to next time we do this. Keep up the love and support, teams. I really appreciate it, and flick some ideas through. I'm always all ears, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their day, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.